2019 brought us a revolution in professional wrestling with the creation of All Elite Wrestling. They ran their first pay-per-view Memorial Day weekend of that year, and with the success of AEW's Double or Nothing, they turned around and ran 2 free shows on the BR app. We're taking a look at their third pay-per-view called Fight for the Fallen. It happened 5 years ago today. We're going to take a look at that show, the creation of All Elite Wrestling, and everything else going on at that time. It's time to review, and the Podski starts now.
The Podski with John Baker. For over 1 year, the revolutionary force in audio entertainment.
Ooh, yeah!
Brother,
Let me talk to you! Freak out, freak out!
I just had an out-of-body experience!
The insane in the membrane!
Brother,
Yeah! And I'm here for only one reason, and that's to take it to the limit, yeah!
somebody stop the damn man!
I'm living on the edge.
Who is your daddy?
Hello and welcome to the Podski. I'm your host, Johnny Bake Show, and ringside with me is Teddy Mongoose. We are doing something new today. We are not covering WWE in 1999 or 2004. If you are a frequent listener to the show, that is where we live. But today we're going outside the box. We're going back only 5 years to 2019 with AEW Fight for the Fallen 2019. And I am super excited for this. This was like the height of wrestling fandom for Mongoose and I, and we have a lot of stuff to cover here. This was a free pay-per-view on the BR app, but guess what? Tony is now charging you for this pay-per-view, so if you want to go back and watch this show, it will cost you. I believe it is $9.99 on the Fight app, so it's not free like it usually is if we're covering something here on Peacock, but we're super fired up for the show, and we want to remind you of the bonus shows that you all have unlocked as you, the subscribers, are doing that. We are recording Eddie Guerrero's show very, very soon, and we have the Scott Hall bonus episode coming up next month in August. Fingers crossed, and we'll eclipse that 1,000 subscribers mark, and we'll get you the Macho Man Randy Savage show in September, so keep subscribing to the channel and watching the shows. That's how the channel grows, and it greatly helps us out. But getting back to Fight for the Fallen here, this was such a special time for us, especially in our brodom that we're about to talk about here. And Mongoose, I'm so excited. Please, the ball's teed up for you. Smack it down the fairway for us.
Before I get started, I do want to note that even though the show is now a $9.99 show, there is a deal on Fight where for something like $34.99, you get this Fyter Fest. There's a handful of pay-per-views, old pay-per-views that you get.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. And so like in the context of that, it makes more sense. And if anybody didn't buy these shows up front and you're getting a little nostalgic, that $34.99, it seemed like a good deal for what you get. The thing is, John and I were such marks for it. We bought all the shows anyway, so we have them all in the archives. But if you were not, a day one guy, it is a pretty good deal, and you'll see a lot of good wrestling. So to get back into where we are. So I'm going to start this story with the genesis of our affection for the elite guys. And this story will begin exactly how you would expect it to, with me listening to the Steve Austin podcast one night in 2017.
What?
So the main topic from 316 Gimmick Street on that night was a match that Dave Meltzer gave 6 stars to. And I was not an Observer subscriber at that time. I knew who Dave Meltzer was. I used to read Dave Meltzer's free excerpts on different wrestling websites in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I was familiar, and Austin going on and on about this 6-star match was something that sort of piqued my interest, but it wasn't enough that he went move by move, what the high spots were, all that stuff. And because I didn't know the wrestlers that were involved, I wasn't really invested in what he was saying, but he did keep talking about, this is the match that broke the scale, the controversy that was around it, so on and so forth. So again, I was only half listening. I was reinvested into WWE at that time, but I wasn't watching anything outside of the WWE. But the fact that people were calling it the greatest match of all time had me interested. So we fast forward to the summer of 2017, and I'm visiting my parents. My kid was just born in January, so she's a little baby. My wife and my daughter are asleep. I'm the only one that's awake. I'm up doing grad school work at the time. I finish it up, and I sit down to relax. I pour me a nice glass of blood, straight Good Brothers Kevin Nash style, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And I just wanted to sit down, sip and enjoy something. And so I think to myself, you know what? There is the greatest wrestling match ever out there, apparently. Let me look this thing up. So I literally Googled like Dave Meltzer's 6-star match. I see Omega Okada. I type it in. I find it on Daily Motion. I Chromecast it or whatever to my dad's smart TV. And about 35 minutes later, my wrestling fandom completely changed. There was a true paradigm shift here. Like my wrestling life was different because I had no idea who either of these guys were. And I literally saw the most incredible match that I'd ever seen. I saw Kenny come out, the Okada come out. It's a big deal. It's the Tokyo Dome show. There's all the pageantry and everything. That was cool. But there was like whatever the time was, 35, 38 minutes of absolute magic there. That night I was like, okay, I gotta find out more. Okay. Because this was literally all that. So I start watching YouTube clips and stuff with Kenny Omega in it. And he was the one that really drew me in. So not that Okada didn't, but Kenny really had, he's Kenny, dude. He's so charismatic, and the way that he was just so over the top with his moves and with his selling and the stuff that he was trying to set up and his kickouts and all that stuff. And I think what made it even more endearing to me was that I found me rooting for him, even though you find out that A, he's like the heel here, and B, he's the challenger to the greatest of all time over across the Pacific, which is Okada. And so, his work really drew me in and made me want to root for him. Even though he lost, I was like, I got to find out more about this guy. So I'm watching YouTube clips. I found out he runs with these guys called the Young Bucks. They're in the Bullet Club. I knew what the Bullet Club was because whenever AJ and the Good Brothers came over to the WWE in 2016, there was all that Bullet Club stuff with John Cena, and it was a moment whenever he would bring it up. And so I was familiar, but then I found out that they also were running with the Scorn Cody Rhodes. And so now I'm like, okay, you have got me. So I am checking more out. And at about this time, John and I are doing some intense male bonding over pro wrestling in a group chat that we're in. We were literally, it would be started in, I don't even remember, probably about golfing or something like that. But then we would talk about, we're going to watch the Royal Rumble and we're watching this and that and going back and forth.
Yep.
And so I started plugging the elite guys to the boys. I found Ring of Honor television syndicated on my cable, started watching it every Saturday. And the guys, but namely John, were really buying in. So John at the same time is telling me, dude, you need to watch NXT. You think that this is good. You need to watch NXT. And so John and the boys come to my place to watch Death Before Dishonor in September of 2017. We see Cody versus Minoru Suzuki in the main event. We saw the Young Bucks wrestle the Motor City Machine Guns. We saw Punishment Martinez, Marty Scurll, the Briscoes, all kinds of talent on this show, dude. And so at that time, John is in, the boys are in, we are Ring of Honor guys, but he keeps saying to me, brother, you need to watch some NXT.
It's really funny you mentioned the Steve Austin pod, because without the Steve Austin show, I don't know that the Brodom begins, because I stumbled onto not only but Steve Austin, but I stumbled onto Steve Austin through NXT, and Austin kept talking about how good NXT was, and I was just a fresh subscriber to the network, and I remember it was my winter break in college, and I was like, I'm just gonna fire up this NXT that Austin keeps talking about. And spoiler alert, we're gonna cover it here later at the end of the year, but it's the NXT Revolution show, and it's the 10-year anniversary, so that's why we're gonna cover it. But that literally, like, when you were talking about seeing that Kenny match, like, that match changed my complete fandom around. I started watching NXT all the time. And furthermore, for the Steve Austin pod, like, I remember him talking about that match, the Kenny and Okada match. I remember him talking about it. But what I remember, one of the first episodes of the Steve Austin pod that I listened to was whenever he was talking about Ricochet and Ospreay. And then I was like, okay, I got to check this out. And so the wheels were turning, but we just didn't know how to watch outside of WWE. Like, how do you watch any of this stuff? Because I didn't know how to watch it either. But that's just crazy that you brought up that specific episode of Steve Austin, and like, we're so synced right now on this.
You want a crazy synchronicity. The argument going on right now is about the Kalani Jordan and Sol Ruka match that just happened on Heatwave. And people are complaining. I made my wife watch it. So I made Mrs. Mongoose watch it. Because the argument and complaint back and forth is, was this a wrestling match or was this a performance? Which was literally the Ricochet and Ospreay argument.
That was literally the same argument, the exact same argument. I remember Austin talking about it. Austin said it's a match. So literally the Texas Rattlesnake was like, this is a match.
Yep. And she watched it, and dude, she literally, we were, I don't know, maybe 3-4 minutes in. So about 60 or 70 different high spots already. And she was like, this isn't any different than the AEW stuff that you watch. And it is different. She doesn't get it. But to her credit, what she saw was flips and, you know what I'm saying? Like acrobatic counters, I guess, is the polite way to put it, you know, in a way that makes me not seem demeaning, because it wasn't. I actually was really entertained by the match, but there's people out there that are going nuts. So that's another weirdo thing that we literally just synced up with that. The other thing that I need to note about Steve Austin is that show is how you and I both separately found Bruce Pritchard.
Yeah.
Because I heard Bruce on Austin and you heard Bruce on Austin, and we were simultaneously listening to Bruce's show and found out that we had a thing. And then that was like one of our appointment listening shows for a long time.
Oh my word, dude. We used to talk about listening to Bruce every single Friday. We couldn't wait till Fridays at noon for that show. It was our favorite show. If we could just go back in time and just relive
glory days.
The glory days.
Okay, so we get together then for, off of John's NXT push, we get together for War Games in November. And what that started was this awesome tradition of brotherdom that was just us all getting together, and not only in person, but talking about stuff through the chat for years. We were very deep into all the Elite happenings, especially. And what was so great about the Elite guys was there was weekly TV, but it's a syndicated ROH show. So what they did was they used Being the Elite to create their storylines, introduce characters, get new guys over. And so what was awesome was that even if John, myself, somebody in the chat missed Ring of Honor, you could watch Being the Elite and keep up with all the storylines that we really cared about, right? Like, and that's what was awesome about it. It was literally, dude, John would text me every week right when the new Being the Elite dropped. I would literally every lunch break sit down and watch the episode. I needed to know what was happening. I didn't want spoilers because I knew John was going to be texting about it nonstop once he saw it. And it was really good stuff, man. And it even gave us what I still hold as my favorite storyline of all time. And John, you know what that was?
The Bullet Club explodes. Bullet Club is fine. Bullet Club is mine.
I love it, man. I have pictures of my kid in a bath with those little letters that you put onto the tub. And I have her in the tub with one says BC is fine. I have one that says Team Cody. I didn't have two N's, so I couldn't make a Team Kenny. But like, I loved it, dude. That whole journey is going to most likely be chronicled at some point in time in the future, because this was a lot of fun going back through this. And I know we're going to be revisiting those things sometime. So let's fast forward now, John. Why don't you give us the quick and dirty as to how AEW came into existence?
Yes. So if you're a modern wrestling fan, yeah, I don't know how you don't know the story already. It's basically Cody taking on a tweet from Dave Meltzer. There was a fan that had tweeted Dave saying, do you think that ROH will ever sell out an arena with 10K fans, something like an MSG? And Dave responded with, not anytime soon. And then Cody quote tweeted it and said, I'll take that bet, Dave. I already gave them their biggest buy rate, put the Bucks and I on the card, and 3 months to promote, and he tagged Ring of Honor. And that is where the original All In was born. It was a huge success. I remember watching that with you. Like, I remember all of this so much. The Young Bucks, Hangman Page, Kenny Omega, and Cody Rhodes' contracts, they were all coming due at the end of 2018. Being the Elite does a countdown clock at the end of the new year. There's all like, we had no idea what was going to happen. We thought they were all going to go to WWE because it's Rumble season. Like, are they going to stay in ROH? Are they going to stay in New Japan? But then, like, on the outside, there was a chance that they were going to start their own promotion. So if you go back to Being the Elite, episode 132, the clock is ticking. I loved Frankie Kazarian. Was so good on Being the Elite, man.
Oh, dude, he's the best. He's the great. All of SCU is out of this world.
They're so good. Kazarian's drinking. Daniels is on the elliptical. The Bucks, Hangman and Cody, they're walking through a hotel in Tokyo. The voiceover from All In plays as Matt is walking through. It's now 11:58 live time. Scorpio Sky checks his phone at a party. Fat ass Masa looks up and says 11:59. Fat ass Masa looks up. It's 11:59. And the voiceover.
Hard Cock Cafe.
Let me into orbit, man. Cody enters an elevator as they play his voiceover from All In. He says, sometimes when you make a bet, you go double or nothing.
Oh, goosebumps.
Oh, man, goosebumps. Cody, Hangman, Matt, and Nick meet in front of the Tokyo Dome. They count down the new year. The timer goes to 0. They say it's a bust. There's nothing. Only the Tokyo Dome is in the background. Matt tells him to check it again. Cody laughs, and the 4 Elite guys look at their phones. Double or Nothing is on Matt, Nick, and Cody's phone. Hangman's phone says something different. It says All Elite Wrestling with the logo on the screen. The Elite Warrior music hits. And like, we both have goosebumps now talking about this 5 years later. But speaking of Double or Nothing, Mongoose, we got to fast forward to Double or Nothing.
Oh, we do. And we will undoubtedly review that show sometime in the future. We missed the 5-year marker because of everything going on with where we were in our timelines. But man, that absolutely, it'll get its own show.
It will.
Well deserved with all the digging and dirting and all that other stuff. So the cliff notes are, the show took place on May 25th, 2019 at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas. They sold almost all of their 11,000 tickets in a pre-sale in less than 30 minutes. The rest that were held back after the production holds were sold out in 4 minutes the next day. Initial estimates on the show were roughly 98,000 buys, which would have been a huge success. This is coming from the week after's Wrestling Observer newsletter, by the way. The show got a record response from Observer readers with 1,728 thumbs up, 97.5%, 12 thumbs down, 0.7% of the readers, and 32 thumbs in the middle, 1.8% of the readers. So this particular show got about 1,750 responses to the Observer newsletter. Dave's fax machine was probably going out of control at that time. Best match on the show with 999 votes was Cody versus Dustin.
My favorite match of all time.
Yep. The Young Bucks versus Lucha Brothers also got 410 votes. The worst match, as voted by the readers, was the Casino Battle Royale. And when we talk about that show later, there's a reason.
Yes,
I mean,
there is.
We popped to the moon because Glacier's there, but there's also a guy that doesn't have legs. Like there's
It's so insane to say out loud. It's not like
I know there's a lot going on. The second worst match, according to the Observer newsletter readers, was Britt Baker versus Kylie Ray versus Awesome Kong versus Nyla Rose with 271 votes. So that's the preface. John, why don't you give us a quick rundown of the match results of the show?
Yes, the first match of the night was the Casino Battle Royale. And after coming out as the wild card at around the 12-ish minute mark, Hangman Page wins your Casino Battle Royale. He does get his then opportunity to face Chris Jericho later on at All Out. So that is how that ends up happening. Kip Sabian pinned Sammy Guevara in a 3 1/4 star match. SCU beat SEMA, T-Hawk, and Lindemann in a 4-star match. Britt Baker won the 4-way over Nyla Rose, Awesome Kong, and Kylie Ray, 3 stars. The Best Friends, Chucky T and Trent Beretta, they beat Evans and Angelico in a 3 3/4 star match. Rio Mizunami and Hikaru Shida beat Aja Kong, Emi Sakura, and Yuki Sakazaki in a trios tag match, and that got 3 3/4 stars. Cody pinned Dustin in a 5-star match. Bret Hart, of all people, unveiled the AEW World Championship belt. The Young Bucks beat Penta and Phoenix to retain their AAA titles in a 4 3/4 star match. And Chris Jericho pinned Kenny Omega in a 4 1/4 star match. The show ends with Jon Moxley debuting. He gives the dirty deeds to Kenny on the poker chips, and then he attitude adjusts him, just yeeted the poor guy right off the top of the chips onto the stage. And it was an insane ending, losing my mind when that happened.
It really was. You couldn't have debuted any better, man. You have a 5-star match followed up by 2 legit 4+ star matches.
Yeah.
And your finishing angle has the biggest wrestling star that you could have got, meaning that like Cena and those guys are all under contract.
Right.
So with Jericho, the biggest wrestling star you could have got beats Kenny Omega. He's going to fight for your title now. And then Omega gets attacked by the first coup. Like,
yeah,
awesome.
The
awesome
big domino,
stuff.
the real big first domino there.
So that segues perfectly into after the show. Tony Khan says that Jon Moxley has signed a multi-year contract with the promotion, and he'll be working independence and international dates over the summer with no real further details. But the biggest thing here, this one exploded the bro chat, where Jon Moxley does an interview on Chris Jericho's podcast that released on 5/29, which within 10 hours of its release became the most listened to Talk is Jericho in history and was the 3rd most listened to podcast on the day of its release. That thing was a nuclear bomb.
Oh, it was so good. I remember texting everybody immediately as soon as I saw that it came out.
Yes. And unfortunately, it started the thing where everybody that went from WWE to AEW needed to go on Talk is Jericho.
Yeah, it kind of ruined the gimmick.
But that first one was great, man. All of this is for another show. We can get into Double or Nothing, the fallout, the podcast, all that stuff. We will save that for later. So, John, why don't you give us a rundown on being the elite from Double or Nothing into Fyter Fest?
Yes. So these were the weekly shows because they weren't on TV at all then. This was all done on YouTube. It's being the elite. So we'll start with episode 154, and that is backstage at Double or Nothing. It was posted on May 27th, 2019. The show starts with them following Moxley on the concourse before his debut. They show Masa. He made it to star cast, and that was a great moment. It really shows them inside the building the night before, them building the set, and throughout the week as the set gets built. Nick Jackson was the first one to wear the world title in the hotel room the night before. They reveal All Out, which at some point we will talk about here, I'm sure, on the show. They show some Double or Nothing footage, and then they tease at the end Jon Moxley versus Joey Janela.
I really, really liked, and I'm going to say this more than once when we're going through this, I really appreciated about being the Elite, the raw backstage cell phone camera footage of these guys before they go out.
Yeah,
I
really
think that is so cool. And the fact that they had that and incorporated that was awesome, man. So good. Give us the next one.
Yes, the next episode is episode 155, titled This Episode is Live. It was the following week on June 3rd, 2019. This is really funny because the Bucks are sitting on the Cracker Barrel rocking chairs, and they didn't realize that Moxley had attacked Kenny. This is just so good.
It's incredible because the first scene is the cold open where they show them with Moxley, and both of the Bucks stick their fists out to do the shield fist deal. And Moxley just stares at him and then like grunts and walks away. Oh my God, dude. I died. You said about the Cracker Barrel rocking chairs, those belts just sitting on a Cracker Barrel. I exploded. And whenever Matt's wife comes out and asks about Kenny, and he says, we're in Gorilla, we watched his debut, we popped, we celebrated, we ate red vines, and that was the end of it. And they were completely flabbergasted that Kenny got absolutely murdered after Moxley went out there. Because in their eyes, the debut was a success, everything was good, and they didn't realize that he murdered their best friend. And so them just sitting on their rocking chairs and just being like, maybe they won't see this or whatever. And they're just cutting over and over again to Kenny just getting just tossed off of the chips onto the stage. It was beautiful, man. I love the Young Bucks, dude. I love them so much.
Yes, it was so good. They officially announced Jon Moxley versus Joey Janela at Fyter Fest, and Fyter Fest is going to be the next upcoming show. Michael Nakazawa and Alex Jabali, they are both announced for a match against each other at Fyter Fest. MJF calls Joey Ryan. I don't know how much we can really say about Joey Ryan on this show, so we'll keep it light. But he calls him the Rick Rude if he was a backyarder, and I went into orbit whenever he said that.
That was a great line.
SEMA, he called Christopher Daniels because he said he quote unquote wants to have a match with him, but really SEMA is trying to get a match with Kenny Omega, and Christopher Daniels has no idea what he's saying because he doesn't speak Japanese.
Love it, man. A couple of other things that I noted that the first one was the bad thing. We're in the peak librarian as of being the Elite segment here. And so I actually always loved their bits on being the Elite. It was just so bad whenever it came to live crowds.
Yeah.
And it didn't translate, and it always died. And obviously, as it goes on, they pick up on that. But it's a shame because I always really liked those segments. I thought that they were cute. They were always short. Avalon's a great nerd. But yeah, there was that. The Luchasaurus Master Degree bit is awesome. It's awesome. And he has Jungle Boy on his shoulders, and he asks him and then Rick Knox, when did the U.S. gain its independence? Knox says 1776. And Luchasaurus says incorrect. It's July 4th, 1993, when Lex Luger body slammed Yokozuna on the USS Intrepid. And Knox says, no, you're wrong. It's 1776. And Luchasaurus looks dead in the camera and says, I have a master's degree. And I freaking loved it, man. And then the other thing that I loved was the BTE mailbag. Like, the Sky story about how they got the SCU name was really cool. Like, I liked how there was a mini shoot interview that was layered into there. And then seeing Cutler's little mini shoot on his experience, you know, being signed to AEW and everything was really cool. Like, I thought that this episode was awesome.
Yeah. I do miss BTE mailbag a lot. We need BTE to come back, man. But the next episode is episode 156. It is the June 10th, 2019 episode, and it is titled Dark Order. And man, we'll get to the Dark Order, but Hangman calls Nick Jackson because he wants to have a match with MJF while there's a Lionheart Chris Jericho over his shoulder on the TV screen. He says, I want to smack that stupid unibrow off his face. Nick can't understand what Hangman is saying, and he thinks that he wants to face Jungle Boy. So they announce Hangman and Jungle Boy for Fyter Fest. We get the very first Dark Order vignette, and this was not, you could just tell it was going to not be great for the beginning. Hangman calls Nick back again because he realized that Nick messed up and booked the wrong match. Nick heard Hangman say Havoc, and he was like, oh, you want to face Jimmy Havoc? Oh, it's done. And he announced Hangman versus Jimmy Havoc for Fyter Fest. Hangman gets pissed again. He calls Nick back, and he's like, how could you mess us up again? So they end up booking a four-way for Fyter Fest. So the four-way is announced. It is Hangman, Jungle Boy, Jimmy Havoc, and MJF in the four-way. So that match is fully booked after 3 tries of getting it right. And all of this is happening with Hangman, but every time the camera is on him, there's a Chris Jericho match on the TV behind him. So they're teasing that we're going to get Hangman versus Jericho here. At the end, Nick receives a DVD from the Lucha Bros, but it's in Spanish and he doesn't know what they're saying. But Kenny and the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Bros and a mystery partner pops up on the screen. So that is announced for Fyter Fest.
Yeah, man. With this episode, I love the cold opens. This one had Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy in a grocery store where Jungle Boy couldn't reach something at the top. So Luchasaurus puts him on his shoulders. And then they go to the meat section. Luchasaurus picks a bunch of red meat. Jungle Boy says, no, gives a thumbs up whenever they go to the produce. I thought that was great. That Hangman deal, dude, the Hangman quote that really sent me into orbit about all of this was, we don't really have an authority figure for matches. We just kind of talk about matches and the graphic comes on and the music thing. Because every time he called for a new match, it would just be, never look back, no, never say die. And they would just show the new match.
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome, man. John, I need to tell you, in the MJF segment, the dude was Johnny Collins from VPW.
Thank you for telling me. I sat there and watched it. I rewound it a couple times. I was like, I know that dude, but I can't remember his name. And it's Johnny Collins from VPW.
It was Johnny Collins.
So we saw Johnny Collins at a live show at VPW Wrestling in Long Island. We saw him back in 2022, and he was awesome. That was such a good time, man.
Yes, and the fact that they're at the Creative Pro school, those were all Creative Pro guys. Because I looked and I was like, I recognize that guy. And I was like, oh, he's in a pirate shirt. And I was like, oh my God, that's Johnny Collins.
Thank you.
Freaking exploded, man.
I knew that he looked familiar, and I could not figure it out. It was driving me nuts.
Yep. And so the other things I've noted here, when they go to that Dark Order thing, man, I literally just wrote, this is so dork odor. Good God. Like,
yeah.
It's not even one of those deals where it's campy, so it's cool. It's just dying. It's a shame because those guys have personalities, we find out later. But God, they were introduced poorly and all right. So moving on, the BT mailbag, whenever Sammy said that the panda stuff is just because he likes pandas.
I got so pissed.
I thought that was an incredible revelation. I was like, so dude, you just like panda. That's wild. And here's where I actually empathize though, John. If I were getting into the squared circle, I would have like Teen Titans gear and stuff on, and people would say, why are you doing that? I'd be like, my kid likes it. for no other reason. So like, I actually did I thought that was kind of cool. And the last thing that I thought was just a chef's kiss was when Nick does get that DVD, he doesn't know how to use it. So he puts it into a microwave first and it doesn't work. And then he puts it in an Instapot and then he opens a cabinet and it starts playing.
Yeah. That was so good.
Oh, excellent, man. Nick Jackson he's hilarious, man. I thought that was awesome. All right, brother, on to the next. What you got?
Yes, the next episode is 157, and it is titled Viva Los Tag Belts, and that is the June 17th, 2019 episode. They start with Cody and Dustin at Double or Nothing hugging it out, and that is on the Young Bucks phone, and then they roll their eyes, so they're teasing a match here. Kenny is at E3, and he's pissed off for what happened at Double or Nothing, and he's going to blow off some steam. Christopher Daniels questions his dog on his match with SEMA. Like, this was so good. The camera pans to an arena in Mexico, jumps up to Sammy Guevara saying he's too busy for the Young Bucks, that he's got to do his vlog. It shows footage of the Lucha Bros beating the Young Bucks for the AAA tag team titles. And then they announce at the very end that Laredo Kid is going to be the Lucha Bros mystery partner for that 6-man tag at Fyter Fest.
Yeah, the travel cutaway that the Bucks do, and then they play Warrior Cry in the background.
So
those little montages, man, they're awesome. And the reason that they're awesome is that this was before everything was so transparent on social media.
Mm-hmm.
So to have people that you were following literally just show them in an airport and, we're getting ready and whatever. I always really, really like those, especially those early being the elites.
Yep.
And so this gave me some nostalgia feels, especially with that Warrior Cry playing in the background, man. It's the best montage music ever. Kenny is flubbing Fyter Fest, and we'll talk about that more in the future, but him saying that he's been talking to Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg really made me laugh. I thought that was awesome. Dude, the Mexican merch stand looked so incredible.
Yes.
That merch stand in front of that show, dude, was something else.
We love a good merch stand, and that was a good merch stand.
Absolutely, man. And then the last thing is with that little Sammy Guevara scene, Sammy's pissed because Cutler has a contract and he doesn't, and literally says to Cutler, quote, "Every company needs a job guy." And so then I just wrote, it was spoken into existence.
Literally put out in the universe, and it happened.
All right, man. So what's the next week look like?
Yes, this is the last show before we get to Fyter Fest. It is episode 158. It is called Control Room, and it is from June 24th, 2019. It starts with Christopher Daniels asking Britt Baker if she will do the SCU bit, but she refuses. Kenny's planning for Fyter Fest is going absolutely terrible, and he's saying he's trying to book Robert Downey Jr.
Because the MCU's failing.
Yes. That did not age well.
Oh.
MJF's butler brings him a carbon copy of Hangman, and I'm pretty sure that this is Smart Mark Sterling.
Confirmed. It is.
That's
same deal with Johnny Collins.
Oh,
a cap guy.
Yep. So MJF puts him in a sharpshooter, which was really funny at the end of that too. Cody versus Darby Allin is added to the Fyter Fest card, and I had literally no idea who Darby Allin was when they put that up there. I was like, who's this face-painted dork that's going to face Cody? Like, he's going to get his ass.
Yeah, the I Like Turtles kid.
Yes, it's a great one. In the BTE mailbag, though, Kenny mentions Riho, which I thought was really interesting because he said that he really wanted to bring her in and all that. Like, I didn't, because I didn't even really notice Riho at Double or Nothing. So I thought that was really good that he mentioned her again and then spoke it into existence later for the future too.
Well, he said that he was teaming with her since she was 11 years old in DDT doing the intergender matches. And that's what was awesome was there are people, and probably many that even would listen to this show, that think that she's the dirt worst because she weighs 11 pounds and she's 4 feet tall. Yeah. But that girl gets over, man. She's a heck of a worker in every match. She ends up being the biggest, best baby face. And it's really cool to me that Kenny was like, yeah, this girl got it and I'm bringing her in. Mm-hmm. And then plugs her along the way so that he keeps her fresh in our mind. I thought that was a really neat sort of layer to it.
Yes. Matt and Nick, they end up spoofing the Rhodes brothers before their match with the Lucha Bros with about, I don't need a tag partner, I need my brother. And then at the end, it ends with Kenny's plans with Robert Downey Jr. foiling.
Not only do they foil, Kenny's so mad that he says modern stars are no good. So he's trying to talk himself into this. He says, let's think childhood. Think Full House. Yeah. Who's that guy with the good hair, looked like Elvis? And then somebody in the back goes, Uncle Jesse? And then Kenny goes, yeah, Uncle Jesse. And the dude goes, yeah, we can't take him. He'll F up our brand. And then Kenny goes, well, what about the guy with the holes? So it's Uncle Joey, right? And then the guy says, Alanis Morissette will pull out if he comes. So Uncle Joey's out. So then he goes, what about that good looking girl that all the kids like that did the news? The guy goes, Aunt Becky? He goes, yeah, Aunt Becky. The guy goes, yeah, she's going to jail. So he's just shot down time after time. Kenny's then infuriated because Ariana Grande pulled out. They tell him that Rick Astley's available. It's cool because he's singing to the kids or something like that, and he's a meme. Kenny's just outright offended. He tells the guy to roll his ass out of there, and the guy gets down and starts rolling, which makes Kenny even more upset. And then the show ends with a frustrated Jabali because he's sitting there trying to set it up himself, and they look, and Kenny is playing DDR. Just dancing his life away with no shirt on, just like he does in the intro to the show. Awesome, dude.
But we're here at Fyter Fest. So this is the last show that we got in between Double or Nothing and our show that we're talking about today, Fight for the Fallen. Would you please give us the rundown for Fyter Fest, Mongoose?
Yeah, so this show took place on June 29th, 2019 from the Ocean Center in Daytona Beach, Florida. The poll results from the Observer were 74% thumbs up, 7.8% thumbs down, and 18.1% thumbs in the middle. Should be noted that Double or Nothing did 1,700 plus on the Observer poll. This one is right around like 850-ish. Mm-hmm. So viewership is obviously down here, but this wasn't their first show, nor was this a marquee show. Best match was overwhelmingly Young Bucks and Omega versus Pentagon, Phoenix, and Laredo Kid. Second place in that voting was Jon Moxley versus Joey Janela. Worst match was Allie versus Leva Bates, which actually won the poll over Michael Nakazawa versus Alex Jabali. So think about that. All right. So John, go ahead. Give us the match rundown, please.
Yes. The first match was the Best Friends. They won a 3-way over SCU and Private Party. This match is important of note because a dud Dark Order appearance happened after the match was over, and they were literally dead out of the gates. This was not good. The creepers, all of it, just bad from the start. Allie pinned Leva Bates. The match went almost 9 minutes.
I couldn't even imagine.
Oh, I can't believe I don't even remember this match. I don't want to go back and watch it because of this match. Michael Nakazawa beat Alex Jabali in 8 minutes and 50 seconds in a hardcore match, and this is literally the match that broke Jim Cornette's brain in half. Seema beat Christopher Daniels. Riho won the 3-way over Nyla Rose and Yuka Sakazaki. Adam Page won your 4-way over MJF, Jungle Boy, and Jimmy Havoc. Cody and Darby Allin finished in a draw, but at the end, Sean Spears interfered, hitting Cody with the chair shot, and that's where Cody's head got completely busted open. It was supposed to be a gimmick chair, wasn't fully gimmicked, and it ended up really badly for Cody. The Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, as we said, they beat the Lucha Brothers and Laredo Kid. And then Jon Moxley beat Joey Janela in a lights out match, which was their unsanctioned style match for AEW. But post-match, Kenny Omega attacks Jon Moxley, gives him his comeuppance for what happened at Double or Nothing, and he drums on his back, and he smashes him with an electric guitar on the stage.
Do yourselves a favor and find the Bucks and Omega versus Pentagon, Phoenix, and Laredo Kid match, because this is the one where they come out with the Being the Elite music, and then it cuts to the Street Fighter deal, and they're all in the Street Fighter clothes, and then they do the round 1 fight or whatever it is, something like that at the beginning of the beginning. It's a really cool. It's obviously very niche because it's a gaming thing is what it was centered around, but then the match is awesome. Like to see them all gimmicked up and then to see them have that match versus those guys, it was really good. So some other notes that are happening in between the times that we just ran through the Being the Elites. From the July 8th Wrestling Observer newsletter, the WWE's new era, with Paul Heyman as the executive director of Raw and Eric Bischoff in a similar position on SmackDown, kicked off, at least to a degree, on July 1st. This is the main story in the July 1st Observer issue from that year, in case you're interested in reading about it. But this is an AEW show, so I'm going to move on because it is pertinent to what we're talking about. So Dave writes, the addition of Heyman and Bischoff comes for a variety of reasons and goes back several weeks. The key reasons were an expected negative reaction from Wall Street in the declining indicators of brand popularity, such as arena attendance, merchandise, and WWE Network numbers based off of the prior year. Even though WWE is completely idiot-proof as far as being a profitable company through late 2024 due to its domestic television deals, the stock price is based on the idea the move of SmackDown to Fox will lead to a boom period where all business indicators will rise to much stronger levels. But the declines have led to questions being asked, particularly with the news of AEW getting a TNT television deal, making them the most legitimate U.S. competition since probably 1999. The second is competition. It's no secret the WWE audience declines have been terrible with those under the age of 30, and whatever stability the audiences have is because the over 50 audience has stayed more steady. The problem is the aging audience isn't being replenished. While a lot of people are in denial about AEW, one person in the company noted to us that the most concerning things are the stats that show that AEW fans are not WWE fans, and the belief is they come from two camps: those who despise WWE and want an alternative, and a new fan base they've created through social media and one-on-one marketing through appearances that is younger audience that doesn't care enough about the WWE to hate it. So, interesting little nug drop in here from Dave, because the WWE is obviously scrambling because they're losing a young audience. If you don't know people, its reason is the WWE in 2019 is terrible. The pay-per-view that is going on during the show that John and I are talking about is, I believe it has Drew McIntyre and Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker and somebody else in a hardcore match. Like, you got Shane McMahon all over TV. Like, things aren't good creatively in the WWE right now.
No, and it's not the Drew McIntyre that you're seeing today.
No, it is not. Thank you for saying that.
Close.
It's not the Drew McIntyre that we had at that first NXT show that you had me watch in 2017.
Nope, not even close.
Like, yeah, this guy he's not a nerd, but he's on his way, and they're struggling right here. And so basically what Dave is saying is the young people aren't watching anymore, and they're not watching because it isn't good. The old people are only watching because they're going to watch forever. Mm-hmm. And AEW is captivating a new audience. Enter me and John, who were in that prime demographic.
Right. We seriously were. And it's because, like, I just didn't like WWE just felt so blah. Like, it's not that I like WWE. Clearly we do, because we literally, like, they did come around, obviously, you know, and we all know that. And I literally went to the last two WrestleManias. We went to WrestleMania together this year. Like, we're not WWE haters at all. And I would even say that I'm probably the biggest AEW hater on the show here now. So how the turntables have turned, but I was all in here.
And the other thing of note is that WWE is now a big thing because they created an incredible storyline that literally is soap opera-ish, and you have to keep tuning in with the bloodline. And the other thing is they jacked one of AEW's biggest stars and turned them into a bigger star on their show. And so but that all doesn't happen. If Cody Rhodes would have stayed Dashing or stayed Stardust or stayed whatever, he would be Shawn Spears right now with that company.
100%.
Just a dude that's in NXT trying to put people over.
Yep.
And he left and he made himself a star, and they capitalized on it, and they deserve all of the credit. But that doesn't mean that 2019, that they weren't anything but terrible. They were bad.
Bad, really bad.
And bad enough that they wanted to bring in Eric Bischoff to try to right the ship. And that is its own separate show because he lasts for not very long. I don't even have anything clever to say, but it is quicker than a hiccup, as Jim Ross would say. Some other notes that I have here. So we have the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega and Cody Rhodes will all be competing in AAA's Triple Mania in August. Kenny and the Bucks will face Penta, Phoenix, and Laredo Kid in a rematch from Fyter Fest. Cody Rhodes will team with Psycho Clown and Cain Velasquez in a match against El Texano Jr., Taurus, and a mystery partner. There was a dust-up with Brian Cage not being at Double or Nothing. He was all over being the Elite for a long time. People thought that he would be on that show. He was not, because he was the Impact champion, and Impact didn't want their champion being in a battle royal as just a guy. So that makes sense. Also noted, New Japan will not be mentioned on AEW broadcasts because there is legit heat with the company and New Japan at that point in time, due to basically them saying to the Young Bucks, Cody and Hangman, go ahead, you'll fail, and thinking that Kenny was going to sign with them no matter what. And then when he didn't, they basically said, you're going to go and fail. And they said, double birds to you, because they had thought that they would be working with them the whole time. So they are not being mentioned. The interesting thing here is Jon Moxley is going to be off of Fight for the Fallen because he's working G1, and he's going to be off of any other cards that they have due to the duration of the tournament. He's also their current NJPW US champion, and they will not be mentioning that either. The other thing to mention is the Young Bucks' last non-AEW match in the US will be against Private Party on August 9th in Jamaica, New York, and Private Party have been signed to full-time deals. So that's the background noise going on. Johnny, go ahead, catch us up with what happened after Fyter Fest.
Yes, the Fyter Fest episode of Being the Elite is backstage at Fyter Fest. That was aired on July 1st, 2019. Matt and Nick Jackson are spoofing the Rhodes brothers hugging at Double or Nothing. Rick Knox is named the official ref of the Young Bucks. SCU hates Daytona Beach and they hate the Daytona 500. Peter Avalon and the Librarian Leva Bates end up shooshing each other in a shoosh off. MJF pays off ref Bryce Remsburg, but it's actually Alan Angels who ends up being in the Dark Order later on, which was really, really funny.
Yeah, I loved the Fyter Fest stuff that they had. And if you are not privy to it, the Fyter Fest documentaries came out in 2019. And so they are really heavily going off of the Fyter Fest wave here, which is why Kenny's so incompetent. And so they start the show with basically all of the wrestlers coming to Kenny at the beginning. Nothing is ready. Kenny's trying to tell them everything's okay. And they're starting to riot, which is just like the Fyter Fest docs. About Knox being their referee, when he starts giving them the 5 count for everything, dude, every single time I laughed. Matt goes to throw a gum wrapper away and misses the can, and Knox starts giving him the 5 count for him to pick it up and throw it actually in the trash can. That SCU segment had me dying whenever Kazarian says, what does NASCAR stand for? Non-athletic sports centered around rednecks. And then he called Daytona a toilet bowl surrounded by sand.
They were so good.
Oh, dude, just the best. The best. When they cut back to Fyter Fest, Knox tries to get into a tent, and inside, Trent is there. Chucky T is face down, prone on the planking on the floor, and Trent screams, "Get the F out of here!" And I freaking died at that too. The older brother spoof happened in the shower where they're all covered in blood, and Cutler looks at the screen, says, "I should have went to NXT." I laughed at that. And then, dude, I need to note they worked themselves into a shoot because the whole thing was about how bad Kenny was at setting this up. And then their total entrance was screwed up.
Yeah.
The music wasn't jiving. Kenny's gear wasn't there. Like, it's absolutely crazy that ended up happening that way. And then the last thing that I need to note is that, well, two things really. It's hilarious that they ribbed the WWE for how they watch television whenever Brandy's looking at the screen dead on and Cutler tells her to face this way. And then she's still looking in that WWE angle. Dude, they end up doing that literally like 4 years later. What are you doing?
Literally 4
Don't
years.
forget where you came from. And the last thing is, man, seeing the Young Bucks counting t-shirts at 1 a.m. was a really cool thing to add.
That was really cool. I did enjoy that. I enjoy the backstage, like behind the scenes stuff they used to give you access to. Like, I just really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the traveling, like you said, and I enjoyed the like look behind the curtain of them counting t-shirts and everything like that. Like, it was fun to see that.
Yeah, you're EVPs of a company, you're counting t-shirts. I just thought that was really cool. So moving on to some observer notes. This is from the July 15th edition. As first reported in the July 1st issue, which is outside of our timeline here, that's why I'm doing a sort of a callback. The WWE Network is presenting the Evolve 10th anniversary show to counter Fight for the Fallen in Jacksonville on BR Live. The show itself was scheduled far in advance, so the Evolve show was, but the network showing it does show some gamesmanship on the WWE's part. So the WWE is claiming that they had this in the works for some time. Everything's all good. Nothing to see here. The thing that sticks out, though, is that WWE never aired a non-WWE show on the network live until now.
I remember that.
So Kenny actually tweets, and this is in regards to the rotten angle of counter-programming a charity show. And he tweeted, quote, "If lining your pockets with blood money is okay, then what's wrong with trying to undermine a charity for victims of gun violence? I hear that healthy compensation is supposed to be a good thing, and yet I can't help but feel like I'm gonna be sick." End quote.
Yep.
So of course, what happens?
Twitter explodes, and he's got to delete.
Twitter explodes. Twitter explodes, and it got deleted, man. That's exactly it. So he goes on to tweet, "I've said my piece, and I've opened the door to a very toxic environment." And then he tweets, "It wasn't a message to fans or for the boys, just the decision makers. I wish everyone wrestling on any show that day the best. That is all." And Kenny has always been the adult in the room, dude.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yep. 5 years later, still the only adult in the room.
I should note that this is when WWE bought Evolve, and they were buying up all these indies that they could at that time. They were trying to get as much as they could to build up the network as much as they could, because AEW was supposed to be like the prime indie at that time, right? And so they wanted to get their piece. This show, for this 10th anniversary show, featured JD Drake as a champion on it.
A champion? What?
Yes, he was a regional champion on the show. Dave, I read the reviews from that. Dave has basically said, horrible body, incredible worker.
Wow.
Yeah, so Dave equated JD Drake to Chris Farley in the Chippendales SNL skit that they did with Patrick Swayze. This show also had Austin Theory, Matt Riddle, Eddie Kingston, Shotzi Blackheart, Joe Gacy, AR Fox, Harlem Bravado, a.k.a. Andre Chase, Drew Golak, Akira Tozawa, and Adam Cole on it.
That's a loaded show. There's so many of those people that you see today.
Yes. And Dave gave all of it big praise, said it was a great show. The other thing that I've noted here is Cody released his children's book, Cody, Heart of the Mountain. And the reason that I put that on here is my kid loved this book, dude.
Yeah.
And I found out that it was based off of a real camping story that his dad told him when he was 8 years old, and they went camping for the first time. And so the next time I read this, I'm going to bawl my eyes out.
Yep.
Because it was actually a story that Dusty told him, and then he turned it into a children's book. So the last thing, John, is Joey Janela was in an altercation with Enzo Amore at a July 9th Blink-182 concert in New Jersey. Do you remember Excalibur noting during the Janela match that he was training by slap fighting the quote scum of the earth end quote at a Blink 182 show?
I do remember that. That was
so
awesome.
Excalibur. Yep. So Excalibur is calling Enzo Amore the scum of the earth. So the backstory is Janela challenged Enzo to a shoot fight in a blood sports show with the idea that both guys would train for 6 months. Like shoot fight, man. This fell through. Janela then prank calls Enzo while hosting a show at StarCast in May. So then they're both at the show. Janela goes up to him, introduces himself. Enzo blows him off, and the claim is that Enzo slaps him. The two squared off in what Dave calls very awkward fighting stances and says that nothing really happened beside Enzo taunting Janela and Janela getting defensive. Janela then goes on to say that neither of them knew how to fight, but they had the shittiest fight of all time. Because Janela is exclusive to AEW in October, it is not building to anything. It is just a fun story. And then the last thing that I have here before we move on is the Bucks did an interview with Chris Van Vliet and said that there was a time when they and Kenny Omega were in a room together last year and all three believed they were going to WWE. They said Tony Khan made the right offer, and the one thing AEW offered that WWE couldn't match was the ability to control their own destiny. Regarding Pac, they said it's about 99% certain that he's coming. It's just a question of when. Essentially, it's questionable to when him dropping the Dragon Gate title happens. And then finally, Kylie Ray is out of action. The situation has been kept quiet, but it is a medical issue, but she is expected back soon, and she will never return.
Yep.
All right, brother. Take us into our go home BTE.
So yes, this is the go home BTE for Fight for the Fallen. It is called Go Away Heat. It is episode 160, and it is from July 8th, 2019. Leva Bates thanks the Young Bucks for the librarian gimmick, but the Bucks were literally going to write the gimmick off of television. And then they changed their minds and say, well, what if we give her the Baron Corbin push? And I exploded. And then,
dude, they bleeped Corbin.
Yeah, they did.
I exploded when they beeped Corbin.
So Nick says that they need to do some long-term storytelling. And Matt is writing on his notepad, and the camera pans to the notepad saying, who should we bury? More comedy. And I don't need a partner. I need my brother. So again, at the end with the brother part, they're spoofing the Rhodes brothers ahead of their match at Fight for the Fallen. Mick Foley makes an appearance, and this is where they show footage at a convention. And this was really cool because we got Mick Foley on Being the Elite, knowing that he is the ultimate WWE guy.
I thought he was great here. And when they had little Donovan on there, yeah. I literally was like, oh, Donovan's me when I was 10. Like, I thought that was really cute. But then they cut to, you're the greatest fan ever, and thank you. And Maui says, you're welcome. And they take pictures with Maui. Dude, I was dead. I wasn't alive anymore. I levitated off of my chair. I made my wife and kid watch it. Neither of them laughed, but I thought it was the best thing that I saw in forever.
The episode has SCU oversleeping and they miss their flights. They are then walking through the airport complaining about how much they hate this town and they hate everything about it. And then the camera pans to Peter Avalon and he shooshes them, and they reveal their match for Fight for the Fallen against Lucha Bros.
Dude, CD running through the hotel shirtless at 49 years old. You want to talk about a total life goal? Not only is it great comedy, but like, dude, I won't be shirtless in public and I'm 38 years old. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this dude's 10 years older than me and just living his best life looking great. Hats off to him.
For real.
When Spears was swatting mosquitoes and then Rick Knox said that counts as a tap out, you're done, you lose.
That was good.
And then the last thing is Matt telling Nick that I need my older brother to call an Uber because it's so hot out here. I laughed at that too. I thought that was all really good, man.
Yes, it was so good. But we are here at the main event. We're here at Fight for the Fallen. Will you please give us the lead in here for Fight for the Fallen?
Absolutely. So this show was held on July 13th, 2019, came to you from Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. The idea here was to have another transition show to All Out and to get more experience for the production crew before TV began. So it is literally a transition show. So AEW Fight for the Fallen got 72.7% thumbs up, 8.7% thumbs down, and 18.7% thumbs in the middle. This one only was looking at about 400 plus-ish responses. So again, it was down, but one thing that should be noted from the issue is Dave said because you had back-to-back free shows, that you had more people who would have just been tuning in and out because they weren't vested the way they would have been for a $50 show like Double or Nothing. So that probably would have led to the lower responses as well.
Yep.
Best match, Kenny Omega versus Shima with 317 votes. The Young Bucks and the Rhodes brothers got 55. Worst match, Brandy Rhodes versus Allie, 284 votes. Sunny Kiss versus Peter Avalon, 74 votes. The show did just under 5,000 paid. It wasn't completely sold out in the sense that there were several hundred tickets put on sale the last few days after production moved in, and about 300 of those were left unsold, but it was still a big crowd. In total, the building was more than the capacity it was set up for before the production kills were released, so that was a good thing. There were a number of major executives with Turner at the show live, and they came out of it with the idea of a packed crowd, talent being way more over than they thought, and so they found that it was very impressive and that they had made a good investment. The show was actually a pay-per-view on Fight and I believe ITV for international subscribers, but free if you had a BR subscription. BR added 18,000 new subscriptions that day, so there were that many new people that didn't watch the first two previous shows or watch them with other people that wanted to watch them themselves, which was a really good number. So officials were really pleased with that. Most of the BR Live executives were described as pleasantly caught off guard by the success of the last two AEW shows and the pay-per-view numbers from the first show, particularly that there had been a significant increase in subs for every show. So I actually watched the pre-show for this one, and it was something. So I'm gonna give you the Goose pre-show rundown here. So the show started with Peter Avalon with Leva Bates versus Sunny Kiss. Sunny Kiss comes out with the Jaguars cheerleaders. Avalon and Bates are in full librarian gimmick. It was fun for what it was. The crowd was actually really into it, and the best thing is it was short. Kiss won with the split leg drop, which please tell me Naomi stole this from him. And Dave gave it 1.25 stars. They throw to Jen Decker of Florida State Cowgirl fame. Fun fact here, Lana was another one of the FSU Cowgirls, and her and Jen Decker were best friends in college.
Oh.
So they say that she's going to interview Kip Sabian, but it's Cody and Dustin.
Some production problems.
Yeah, some production problems. The brothers cut a promo on the Young Bucks. Excalibur immediately says that wasn't Kip Sabian whenever they throw it back to him. But yes, production problems. We're still new at this. The second match had B. Priestley and Shoko Nakajima beating Britt Baker and Riho. This match went about 15 minutes, which I felt was too long, but there were a lot of cool spots, and there were enough cool spots that got over to basically cancel out dead spots and things that didn't get over. It was early in the show. The crowd stayed up for most of it, which was great. And it was very strange seeing Britt Baker without her current persona. Like, she's got something, but she doesn't have it yet, and you can really see it. Priestley's the biggest star out here, man. Like, the reaction for her was huge.
Yep.
She was the Stardom champion at the time, and she was super duper over. Britt got her head kicked off really early, and I'll get to that in a minute. She recovers. The last 5 minutes of the match were especially great with the near falls that were there. Nakajima pinned Riho with the Hurricane Rana for the finish. Dave gave it 2.75 stars. It was a perfectly fine pre-show match. However, when you're just starting a company, I don't know if this is one of the matches I want on my pre-show to get you to watch the show. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's not a good call. And it didn't go well. It didn't look good for a while, especially because Britt was injured.
Yep. In the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Meltzer does say that Baker suffered a serious concussion from that kick. And dude, this girl hasn't had it easy the last 5 years. Herniated discs, concussions, broken arm, just announced that she had a mini stroke that kept her out for basically a year. At least she keeps coming back, man. Her and Mercedes going to be great at Wembley. We cut to the main show. So John, go ahead, take us to it, man.
Yes, the first match on the show was MJF, Sammy Guevara, and Shawn Spears versus Darby Allin, Jimmy Havoc, and Joey Janela. Sammy's music is awful here. It's not the music that you're used to here. Thank God they changed it before they got to TV. And Jimmy Havoc, like, whatever. And I'll tell you one thing, I do miss Joey Janela. I'll say that. But Joey Janela and MJF, they kick us off quickly. Janela nearly killed Sammy with that German. It just barely missed the bottom turnbuckle. It's probably good that his head actually did miss. Spears gets tagged into a lot of boos. There's a lot of heat on Spears from that chair shot to Cody. But Darby wants to get tagged in, and he gets a lot of cheers. The crowd really loves Darby here. Once Darby and Spears get tagged out, the crowd got dead quiet. MJF continued to mess with Spears the entire match. Sammy ran wild with the shooting star, Tornillo, and the standing Spanish fly on the opposing team. But Spears hit the Death Valley bomb on Darby for the pin. Dave gave this match 3 stars, though.
I noted that it's 2024 and somehow we just got Shawn Spears in the main event of a PLE this past weekend.
Yep.
Like, no offense to Shawn Spears, man, but like, I've had enough. I was shocked that Jimmy Havoc was a babyface here. Like, I was just totally mind blown. This will end badly, is what I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
I also popped big time for Marvez saying that MJF is changing his body with heavy lifting and DDPY. And then I wrote that I think that he adds something else to his regimen over the next 5 years. He looks like he's sculpted out of granite right now. I really do like that they continue to plant these MJF is going to screw Cody seeds all throughout, especially with him buddying up with Cody and hating on Spears so bad.
Yep.
You know, that's sort of where that animosity is coming from. I also needed to note that MJF, he has it, man, so much. And he's outshining Spears here. And this isn't Spears' fault. Spears has been to the big dance. You know what I'm saying? He was over in NXT. He was on the main roster for a couple of years. It's not like he isn't good at what he does. And MJF is just on another level. And the dude's in his early 20s here. I thought that was awesome. Sammy and Darby showed their potential. And man, I do wish that it worked out with Janela. He's so awesome. He hit a move and looked at a camera and said, "F you, Cornette." And I popped so big. I thought it was awesome. So I loved it, man. I thought this was a great match.
Next, we have Brandy versus Allie. And if you want to know where the Brandy heat started, it's right here. The video package has to be one of the worst video packages I've ever seen in my life. I get the idea of what they're trying to do, but it was awful. Awful. I guess this is what they were attempting to do because Kylie Rae stuff happened and she was supposed to be the big baby face, but this was, you want to see the dirt worst of pro wrestling, this is it.
Well, what's frustrating is that she gets this babyface video package about how she's overcome so much and she's being, led to tears and all that. And then seconds later, dude, she comes out and she's a total complete heel.
Yeah.
So, and here's the more frustrating thing is that I don't know who's in charge of her creative. I'm assuming since the company's in its infancy and her husband is literally an EVP and she's the chief branding officer, that her and or Cody have a pretty big say here, which makes it even more nonsensical because Cody understands baby faces and heels. Like, why do you do a babyface promo and everything heel in a match? Dead on arrival, man.
Yep. Brandy extends the hand to Allie before the match, and when they go for the shake, awesome Kong's music hits, and Kong now becomes Brandy's heater. When Brandy was sitting on the apron, she said, "This is going to be easy." I I exploded and I knew that this match wasn't going to be it for me. So I hit fast forward.
I watched it. So I watched it. So my notes are Brandy as a heel is such a miss. The writing is on the wall for this to die, and we have plenty more of it coming up. Don't forget, she just had a big babyface video package, and her husband's a huge babyface in the main event. There is a distant "Let's go, Brandy" chant, and I popped myself wondering if that was Cody himself shouting it from the locker room, trying to get crowd support behind her. Brandy gets hit with a DVD, and dude, I almost fell off the treadmill because I thought for sure that she was kicking out a Spears finish from the match before to bury his finish, but then Kong put her foot on the ropes. So she did sell the DVD. The two worked really hard. I will give them credit for that. They did. The crowd was polite. I will say that. But I had this as two people who are not best served as wrestlers, and Brandy is totally miscast. I would have given this 1 star. Dave gave it 1.5, so he was much more polite than I would have been. Post-match, Awesome Kong goes to Smash Alley. Aja Kong's music plays, and then JR says exactly what we're all thinking. He goes in his most JR voice, "Oh, now what?" And so her music's playing. She comes out. We have a Kong versus Kong stare down.
We'll talk about, maybe this is the right spot to talk about the commentary, but this commentary booth, you can clearly tell that they're still trying to work through stuff. JR is stepping all over everyone's dicks. Alex Marvez is the worst color commentator I've ever heard in my life. You and I could go out there and call matches better than him. And it was
and Excalibur doesn't have his feet under him yet. Excalibur is probably the best play-by-play in the game. He really is. He's incredible at it. And it's only because he actually knows what moves are. Right. Michael Cole has been wonderful since he's had the leash taken off of his neck, but Michael Cole will still default to what a maneuver at times. Mm-hmm. Whereas Excalibur literally taught me what Suicida con hero and things like that, like things that I didn't know. Michael Cole doesn't teach me anything. Michael Cole just provides the commentary, whereas Excalibur is good and, you know, he's informative while he does it, but he's not in his groove here. Marvez is an excellent reporter, and I only know this because I have seen him quoted in 20 years of observers leading up to this. Or I guess, literally 20 years, 99 to 2019. Yeah. So he's a good reporter and not a good commentator. And dude, the thing that frustrates me with JR is that JR at times isn't putting over what he's calling, and it really irritates me.
Yeah. He was getting his sea legs under him too here. I don't even know if he ever got him. He did get him for the TVs, but here he's still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Speaking of, there was this long rambling cut to the announcers, and JR, I guess, is trying to promote the main event. And he goes, "They're real brothers, not fake wrestling brothers. They have the same DNA or something. I should have watched more SVU." And I was like, oh my God.
I laughed at that one. He had no idea where he was going.
No, it was a good save, but my God, man. All right, next match, Sean, what you got?
We got Dark Order versus Angelico and Jack Evans versus Jurassic Express. Angelico and Jack Evans got to be the worst ring gear you'll ever see. And when Marco's stunt came out, I thought I was going to pass out laughing. And it's so timely because he literally came back this weekend on Collision. Not saying I watched it, not saying I liked it, but I totally forgot about that guy.
Dude, I love me some Marco Stunt. I do. I understand. You got to get rid of him because if he's not going to do anything, you can't pay him money. But him being part of this act, I loved it, man.
It wasn't bad. And, but Luchasaurus, dude, was so over. His kicks were awesome. They were killing Angelico and Evans. Marco interfered and did a top rope Hurricane Rana on Evans and was ejected from ringside. The double team powerbomb by Jurassic Express, but Jungle Boy fell victim to the fatality by the Dark Order, and they get the win. I know what they're trying to do with Dark Order, but like, give us Jurassic Express, man. Like, they were over.
Yeah, well, they were trying to get over Dark Order, and I do give them credit for that because The Young Bucks are total baby faces. SCU are total baby faces. You have to know that the Lucha Bros are going to be cheered. So you do need a strong heel team, but it wasn't it. There were just, even Angelico and Evans were more over than the Dark Order here. People were popping for their high spots. And here's the worst thing, John. The Dark Order were very good in this match.
They were.
It's not like their work was bad.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that their work was bad, but the gimmick sucked.
Yeah, they're dead. So I had noted here that the Dark Order is so dork odor without Brody Lee. Like that is something that needs to be said, man. They were saved whenever they got Brody.
Especially after that Christmas show when we literally thought that the company was going to fall that next day after they killed the Young Bucks on that Dynamite.
Yes. When the Creeper attacked, dude, we thought that was the end. I did love the near fall with Grayson hitting the 450 and Jungle Boy kicking out. I thought that was really cool. They did everything to try to get Jungle Boy over, especially because he was the one that was going to eat the pin. So good on them. I did say it was a shame that Dark Order wasn't over because everyone did work their tails off. They worked really hard to get Jungle Boy over. I'd have given this 3.5. I met right on Dave, man. So I like this a lot, but yeah, Dark Order's dead.
Yep. Our next match is Hangman versus Kip Sabian. Friend of the show, Kip Sabian. We met him at Full Gear, which, another spoiler alert, we're going to be covering Full Gear 2019 because we were there, and I can't wait to talk about that. Oh, man, I can't wait. But Hangman was seriously selling his leg here. The guy yelling at Kip's ear and Kip trying to kiss that guy was amazing. I totally forgot about that. I remember talking about that so much in the chat when that happened. The running powerbomb on the ramp by Hangman, I totally forgot until it happened, and I literally exploded because I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. I totally forgot about this. It was announced that they had 60 seconds left in the match when the Hangman hit the Deadeye for the win, and he is set to face Jericho at All Out for the AEW World Championship belt. Dave gave this match 3.25 stars, and one of the Dark Order creepers hit the ring post-match, hits Hangman with the code breaker, and it's Jericho. He gets a big reaction, and he hits the Judas effect on Hangman.
Yeah, I said that Kip was dressed in what I call his Gatorade gear.
Yeah,
he looked literally like the Gatorade bottle that high school kids get in sports.
That's so good.
But these guys had an awesome match. Man, Sabian can go. And my comparison for him was that I always thought that he could have been the company's Rick Martel, especially because he's like a good-looking guy, to be this good-looking mid-card title-level guy that can work really well and can be a gatekeeper to the main event. Like always in the TNT title picture or whatever, always in the international title picture, whatever that might be. And if you beat him, then you get to go up to the next level. I thought that would have been a great role for him, and it's a shame that it didn't happen.
Sounds like we should have given you the book, brother.
I would have flubbed it a couple of times, but with Kip, I'd have taken care of you, brother. The crowd was dead for too much of this, and I figured that it's because Hangman's supposed to be the number one contender, and now he's in this 50-50 war with Sabian. But to me, it made sense because he's selling his knee the whole time. Yep. He's not 100%. We got to get Kip Sabian over as a guy. I thought that it made a lot of sense. I thought the finishing sequence was great, and I love this match in ring way more than the crowd did. I'd have given this 4 stars, man. I thought that this was an awesome match. Meltzer's words here were a negative from this show was that Paige in the main event of All Out needs a jolt in promotion between now and the show. His match with Kip Sabian was done to establish the clock, teasing a draw, but in this case, Paige won. Fans were expecting a much faster and more explosive Paige win. While technically good, the match didn't get the reaction the face going into the world title should be getting. It was set up for Jericho under a mask to attack and injure Paige, legit busting his left eye open with a kick. Later in the show, as Jericho did an interview and Paige attacked him, Paige needed a fiery comeback interview after the pull apart to really sell it. He dumped on it way more than I would have, man. I mean, I thought that this was a symptom of the crowd being in 85-degree heat. I thought it was great.
Yep, I totally agree. Our next match is SCU versus the Lucha Bros. I think that they took way too much time pandering, but once things got going, like they got going. And those penta chops, man, they're bad looking. Whew. Oh, they look bad. But Daniels hits the Arabian moonsault to the ringside, and that got him ejected from the match. This match is really what set AEW apart from WWE at that time. Like that, you were not seeing tag matches like this. But Phoenix hitting these insane moves, SCU doing these awesome tag team moves together. The Lucha Bros get the win over SCU, and the Lucha Brothers challenge the Young Bucks to a ladder match at All Out. Dave gave this 3 3/4 stars.
I loved seeing CD working the stick coming out. I did. And these guys look like they're having the time of their lives. Like I know a lot of people bagged on them for being all friends wrestling, but seeing this really translates to the audience. And I think that that's what made AEW really special, was that you can tell that these guys were having a great time. I thought the Lucha Brothers were incredible here, and they're so good that I almost feel like they're taken for granted now, almost Usos-ish in like the late teens before the Bloodline line started, where you're just going to get great matches, man. And people just expect really good. And so they're not super over. And I feel like that's how the Lucha Bros are now. It's a shame because they're the best, man. Daniels eating that chop and then giving the Arabian moonsault was awesome. And if you want to know how hot it was and how brutal it would have been to work this show, look at Penta lean in for a tag and see all the sweat literally pour out of his mask, dude. Insane. It was like someone dumped a bucket of water on his head. The match fell apart for a tick, but they're so good that they got it all back. I thought the top rope assisted DDT was an incredible near fall. Finish was great. I love this.
Yeah, I think it should be noted that this was an outdoor venue, and I love outdoor venues, and it really made it special. It made the show feel a lot different than what you actually ever see, especially because you never see that with WWE, and I love the outdoor venue. But our next match was Kenny Omega versus Cima, and this is the Meteora special. Cima did the Meteora off the stage onto Kenny on the timekeeper's pulpit, and like I thought Kenny broke his neck. Like his head snapped way back really hard. Like Cima ended up doing 2 more Meteoras to Kenny, but he kicked out. Cima did a Schwein on the apron, and the crowd chanted, "You killed Kenny." And no thanks to Marvez for telling us what that means on commentary. They exchanged slaps and chops. Cima went down and his knee gave out, and that was the opening that Kenny needed to hit the V-trigger and a Tiger Driver 98 that Cima kicked out of. Kenny went for the V-trigger, but Cima countered it into a cradle pin. Kenny stood up, hits the V-trigger, the one-winged angel. Kenny gets the win. Dave Meltzer gives us 4.5 stars.
I wrote here the first thing. Kenny looks so spry.
He does.
He looks so good. They absolutely smashed each other with strikes. I thought the V-trigger was incredible. I loved Kenny working Cima's knee to take away the Meteora. I thought that was really good psychology. I did almost faint whenever he got dropped onto his head off of that second rope power bomb. And then I really did faint whenever he took that Meteora on the ring bell table. I thought that was absolutely incredible. The finishing sequence was great. The kick out after the Tiger Driver right before the finish was an awesome near fall. I absolutely loved this, man. I thought that this was excellent.
Jericho comes to the ring and calls Jacksonville Jack-Offville, and he cuts a promo on the Hangman for the world title match at All Out. Hangman hits the ring as they fight in the ring, but it's broken up, and that fan that almost was kissed by Kip Sabian, he was yelling at Jericho over the railing here. Bless that guy.
I thought it was really weird not hearing this crowd sing along to Judas.
Weird.
Like before that was the thing. I loved first it was Jerksonville and then Jackoffville. I thought that was great. And my God, dude, Paige's eye looked brutal here.
It did.
Like, I hope that Jericho bought him a nice dinner afterwards, man, because he tagged him good.
He did. So our main event was the Young Bucks versus the Rhodes Brothers, and I really enjoyed this match because of the styles. You have Cody and Dustin, who represent the WWE old school style of tag team wrestling, and the Bucks are this new high spot wave, and it really meshes well together here, and you got to give credit to these guys for this match. Cody posing for Matt after the shoulder tackles was so good. Dustin looked really good here, but the Bucks, they play the heels so well. The hugging and Nick trying to tag Dustin in for him was really, really good here. Cody with the weight belt slap over Nick's back, like it looked like that legit hurt. It caught him like on the back of the neck. The Rhodes worked on Matt's shoulder the entire match. Nick Jackson's hot tag here. It's something special. We get a double sharpshooter by the Bucks. Then we get a double figure four by the Rhodes. Dustin's power slams were amazing. We get the Rhodes giving us some high flying spots to the outside, which I was not ready for. The Bucks go for the Meltzer driver, but Cody breaks it up with a disaster kick to Nick on the apron, and they give an assisted crossroads on Nick, but the pin is broken by Matt. Cody accidentally takes out the ref. The Rhodes give the Bucks the double low blow kicks and the double final reckonings, but the Bucks kick out. We get the super kicks. Nick hits the crossroads on Cody, but Cody kicks out. I don't know when we ever see Cody take another crossroads like that. The Bucks set up for the Meltzer driver, and they connect this time for the 1-2-3. The Young Bucks defeat the Rhodes brothers in a great, great main event. Meltzer gave it 4 stars.
Man, I love the pre-match video package for this.
Oh, it was good.
Again, the shades of the Corbin thing, when they bleeped out, "We beat the Shield," when Dustin was saying how good him and Cody were as a tag team.
Yeah.
They bleeped the Shield out. I exploded. Dustin's fake Green Day brain stew music is so good.
It is.
And it's such a ripoff of that song that he's obviously not allowed to keep it very long. But God, that music is so good. I love the Young Bucks, man. I always have. I always will. And I just think that they're the greatest, man. Like John said, this is much more like classic wrestling match with some Young Bucks stuff sprinkled in. Them getting the heat on Dustin early made sense, especially because he's a giant compared to these guys. They use double teams, dastardly tactics, all this underhanded heelish things to get the heat on him. Mm-hmm. Cody's hot tag was great. They started working on Matt's shoulder. Dude, Matt Jackson is so good at selling a body part.
He is. So
if you remember him selling the back for 2 years or whatever in Japan, like he's very good at this. I thought that he was wonderful at selling here. Also, Nick Jackson has the best comeback in tag team wrestling, maybe one of the best in all styles of wrestling. The dude's just the greatest. I loved all the stereo moves the team did back and forth, and I absolutely loved the finish. So I thought that this was absolutely perfect. Going back, the Observer, Dave and Brian, I listened a little bit before we got on here for their thoughts. They actually were arguing that Kenny and Shima should have been the main event, but the counter argument is this was the match that was built up, man.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that this was what it was. After the show, they are cutting promos. Cody screams, "You can't counter program AEW." Asks for the crowd to join him whenever they go to TNT in October. Huge pops. Matt gets the mic. He gets cut off by Kenny's music hitting. He says, "We must be short on time." They're still new to this. And the show ends in the best way possible with a Shad Khan appearance.
It was a fun show, and it really put me in the nostalgia feels here, and like it makes me want to actually go and watch AEW again. It's putting me in the feels. I have to say, I know that I'm not in the AEW product for a while now, but I'm getting itchy to get back in.
There's a lot of good stuff on there, man. And at the end of it, I think that the problem now is that we got to see great matches sporadically from the Bucks, from Kenny, from all these guys that are still there. And they've only gotten stale because we've gotten used to them.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because we expect, oh, here's a Young Bucks match. Oh, I know it's going to be excellent. I've seen enough of them. And it's a shame, but there are a lot of good things brewing. I think that the build to Wembley is going to be great, looking like Ospreay MJF, looking like Mercedes and Britt Baker, looking like hopefully Danielson versus Swerve. This is going to be a good show, man. So this is a great time to jump back in.
Yeah, very excited for that. And I'm very excited to hop back in here with AEW, but next week we're not going back to WWE. We're giving you another fun show. We're going to be going to WCW Bash at the Beach 1994. We were talking about it here a few weeks ago about how fun it would be to go back and do one of these 94 shows. So we're going to do it next week because we caught you all up on everything in 99 and 04. So we have the bonus shows coming to you soon. We're going to do Eddie very, very soon. We got the Scott Hall episode coming up next month. Please keep subscribing to the channel. We are so close. I can't believe how much the channel has grown over the last month and a half. So we're almost to our goal, which was 1,000. Now we got to reset the bar again and give you a whole new set of bonus shows to strive for. Got to thank Teddy for watching this show and all the notes. And with that, we will see you next time on the Podski.